So again, my name is Michael Penafiel. I'm the coordinator for school and employee campaigns for ShareLife. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and a warm welcome to you all. First off, a little bit about St. Augustine's Seminary. St. Augustine's is the major seminary of the Archdiocese of Toronto. Its main purpose is the preparation of candidates for ordained priesthood in the Catholic Church. And so we have two guests today to talk a little bit about it. Our first guest is Deacon Adam Pantaleo. He's a transitional deacon for the Archdiocese of Toronto and a seminarian from St. Augustine's Seminary. Now, prior to entering the seminary, Deacon Adam studied chemistry at both McMaster University and the University of Toronto. He was ordained to the Transitional Diaconate in this past September by Cardinal Collins, and he is now completing his final year of seminary formation. Our second guest is Daniel Lee. Daniel was born in Seoul, South Korea, and moved to Toronto in 1999. Daniel and his entire family are converts to the Catholic faith and were baptized at the Easter Vigil in 2000 at St. Andrew Kim's Korean Catholic Church in Toronto. In 2016, Daniel entered formation at St. Augustine's and is currently on his parish internship at St. Lawrence the Martyr Parish in Scarborough. So thank you so much, both of you, Deacon Adam, Daniel, thank you for being a part of our speaker series. So let's start with you, Deacon Adam. So we just had the Ordinandi. The Ordinandi was this past Tuesday, and we have your ordination to the priesthood coming up. Can you talk a little about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'll just say good morning to everyone. I'm really happy to be with you all this morning. And yeah, to be honest, it's sneaking up on me as well to realize that my ordination to the priesthood is just over 2 months away at this point. So yeah, a very exciting time for me here at the seminary. So many things going on, finishing up some of my courses, final components of my theology degree, also a little bit of planning work and whatnot, just with things like first masses and whatnot, but that I think will come more as the date gets closer. For now, I think it's also a prayerful time for me as well, just pondering this reality of this milestone coming up in my life, what that means for me, what that means for the church. So that all keeps me busy these days, I guess. But overall, I'm definitely very excited, a little bit nervous. And like I said, a tiny part of me is still in disbelief that this is actually happening after 7 long years of journeying towards this in the seminary.
7 years. Is that usually how long, I guess, formation is? Is it usually around 7 years?
It's a good question. Yeah. On average, I'd say 7 to 8 years. It depends on a few different things. It depends on how much education you have before you come to the seminary. It also depends on how much philosophy you've studied. So formation can be as short as, I think 6 years would be the absolute minimum. But we have some seminarians here that came in, for example, right out of high school. And so their formation is closer to 9 or 10 years.
Okay, got it.
Mine turned out to be 7, just the way everything lined up.
Great. Thanks so much. Okay, Daniel, I'm gonna come over to you. So you're in a different stage, I guess. So you're in the parish internship over at St. Lawrence the Martyr. It's okay if you talk a little bit about your parish internship and how that's going?
For sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. So I'm on my internship and I'm in my 6th year formation. So internship is usually, we go on our internship usually after the 2nd year of theology. And as Mike said, I'm at St. Lawrence the Martyr Parish in Scarborough. So people always ask me, are you nervous going on internship? But my answer was like, maybe, but not really, because every summer the seminarians usually get placed at a parish, or like most of them, right? So I was placed at different parishes last 4 summers, so I wasn't really worried about parish. But then once I started working at St. Lawrence, the Martyr Parish, and I realized that I was so wrong, because if you work at the parish during summer, you just see the result of the year. Like what I'm saying is, you have confirmation mass there, or the first communion mass there, but you're just there for the mass. But if you're going your internship, you see the process you're there from the beginning, right? So from the registration to the catechist and even RCIA classes, you have to be there as an intern, right? So you see the whole process. Then I was like, oh, there's so much going on at the parish, and there are so many people who work behind the scene. So throughout the internship, so far my whole impression at the parish, my intern parish, was that there are so many people working behind the scenes, right, that I never knew, I never even noticed, right? So that's something I'm really grateful for my internship so far. And like I said, like throughout the internship, you learn about the RCIA, First Communion, Confirmation, First Reconciliation. You just learn so much, and I'm just grateful for all this experience I'm having so far.
Great. Sounds good. So I'm going to go back to Deacon Adam. Okay. So this past year for you, can you talk a little bit about what it's been like in seminary? Like, I think now that you're in your final year, it's been quite different. What's this past year like for you?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. The first thing that comes to mind is how my year started. So you briefly mentioned when you were introducing me that I was ordained a deacon in September of last year. And it was actually exactly 1 week or so after the term of seminary started. So I basically came back for my final year in the seminary. And it was a crazy week of just, being nervous and final preparations and whatnot. And then I was ordained a deacon, which really set the tone, I think, for the rest of my year. So I spent the first really couple of months just getting used to, for example, dressing like this in clerics, getting used to my new role, serving at the altar, things like that. Just pondering also that was the moment when I gave my life to the church, right? So I don't know if some of you have seen a diaconate ordination, but that's the point at which the candidate promises celibacy, promises obedience, and basically gives his life to the church at that moment. So it's the point of no return. And I mean that in the best way possible, right? It changes the course of my life. So that really, I think, just, defined my final year here at the seminary. I mean, a more like sort of spiritual, big picture way. And then practically speaking, I sort of hinted at it with, mentioning I'm finishing up some final courses in my theology degree. So a lot of the courses I have, especially this term, are very practical in nature. So for example, I have a course called Ministry of Reconciliation, and the course is all about learning how to basically hear confessions well, the theology behind it, certain practices, and also practicing. Like, it may sound a bit strange, but doing mock confessions just so we learn some tips and tricks and we're not going in blind, and it's actually real one day. So things like that, definitely really different on that practical level, but also, again, like I was saying, the big picture level, just recognizing that I'm now clergy. I'm not a lay person anymore. And that's really, I think, the most important part of this whole year for me.
That's great. So with the, I guess, so on the practical side of things, so this year has been more on the practical side of the priesthood. So that would be, so you mentioned confession. Were there any other practical courses, homiletics maybe, or I guess, can you talk a little bit more about that practical side then?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned homiletics. That's another course I'm in right now. And we actually have 3 homiletics courses here at the seminary, one in second year, one in third year, I believe, and then one in fourth year. So I'm taking the final of the 3 courses. It's the Preaching in Difficult Situations course. So it's really good. It's heavy sometimes, but just, practicing, for example, having to give a funeral at the mass of an infant, for example, the funeral mass of a baby that died at an early age, or a wife or a husband that died of cancer, or something like that, right? These realities that sadly we all experience. And I'm learning in my class now, again, how to navigate that as a future priest, how to give a good sermon. And yeah, I'm grateful that the seminary gives us the opportunity to practice, right? Like, we don't shy away from these really difficult realities, we engage them. And I think it's important to do that again. So we're not going in blind as newly ordained priests. So we have a bit of practice. So there's homiletics. And then the other really big practical course I have is called Liturgical Presidency, which is just a really fancy way of saying celebrating Mass. So again, this is part awesome, part still a little bit strange, but we actually go through, they're called mass simulations, right? So obviously in the privacy of the seminary, so there's no chance of confusion because it's not a real mass, but nevertheless, we practice going through the motions of how to celebrate the mass, and the instructor gives us tips and tricks, and we learn again certain elements of theology, practice, custom behind it, things like that. So that's another really big component of my courses this term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of talks about fourth year, and then obviously there's other years of study, but just to focus on the fourth year, those are really three of the big practical courses: confession, mass, and preaching.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Daniel, I'm going to go back to you. So with I guess with Deacon Adam now, with him being in his final year, Daniel, are you still doing courses in your while you're in your parish internship?
So last year, so it's kind of unusual. I think they just started with our year group, but I took advanced homiletics so from September to December. But we never had that before during internship. But then since we are getting another new course starting in my third year, I'm going to third year this coming September. So they had to squeeze it in, like the advanced homiletics in advance. So I took the advanced. So usually you take that advanced homiletics course in third year, but then instead this time they asked us to take that course during our internship, which was really useful because because during internship you usually preach maybe once one Sunday per term, which is from September to December and January until July. So it really helped me to prepare my homily, or I should say reflection for my Sunday reflection. And those who preach on Fridays, I spoke to my brother seminarians who are in the internship. They also told me that the course really helped them to prepare for the reflection they give on Fridays. So that was really useful. And yeah, so just that course. And then we have another course we're taking, ecumenism. It's not really a course, it's really more like a seminar taught by Father Luis Mello. So that's also really useful for my internship so far.
So then I guess from the school perspective, when is a seminary, or when you're first entering into seminary, so I guess we can work backwards now. We can stay with you, Daniel. What was your focus more, at least for the first few years? So with Deacon Adam being more, I guess, with the practical side of things on the back end of formation, what was your, I guess, first few years like?
First few years, yeah, good question. So I will talk about my vocation story later on, but
Okay.
so this is unlike other people, I joined. So the very first year of the seminary formation will be done at Cell House. Cell House, so it's like pre-theology house that they prepare you to. Usually people study philosophy at Cell House, and I was in my university. I was still taking my undergrad classes at university when I first joined Cell House. So it's kind of really unusual for me because I was at university, but also I was in formation first. So I heard that they started doing that like maybe about 6 years ago. So that was kind of new. Before it was just you have to finish your undergrad or any studies before you enter seminary, but they allow the university students to enter seminary or Cell House, like even now until now. So it was kind of like I didn't know what to expect, but then I was more focused on like, to be honest, like university works first. I know the prayer, obviously there's a prayer life, but then in the beginning I was more strive to finish undergrad the studies first, and then formation was also the center of the formation was the prayer, but then I was more like focused on academics back then. So that was like different. Yeah, it was different for me than other people. But yeah, but then that's something that I will share later on my vocation story. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Deacon Adam, I'm going to go to you now. Any differences from you from your first few years over at the seminary?
Yeah. What exactly do you mean by differences? Do you mean, like, again, talking about the academic courses, different schedules at the seminary? Is that kind of what you're asking about?
Yeah, let's start with, we'll say academic, and then we'll move into, I think, just what life was like, I guess.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, academically, I think the easiest way to describe it is the earlier courses in the seminary are a lot more theoretical. So intro courses in theology, so different areas like scripture studies, liturgy, morality, ethics, for example. We have a number of courses in that. Church history as well. So there's a number of courses, and they're mostly theoretical in the sense of we're just learning what happened in the history of the church. We're learning what the church teaches about Catholic ethics and different church documents, different writings of theologians, things like that. So really useful stuff, but definitely more like desk work, I guess you could say, like, do your readings, write your essays, attend the lectures, typical university courses. Whereas now, as I was describing, most of my courses now were really hands-on, almost like a co-op or like a lab course. I'm just thinking of my chemistry days when some of my courses, I just did experiments in the lab. Well, now I'm doing mass practicums in the chapel type thing. So I think that's the biggest distinction in terms of the courses between earlier years and later years. In terms of the schedule at the seminary, pretty similar, to be honest. Daniel was talking about the difference between the first year or two in Sarah House, so sort of the philosophy house of the seminary, where the schedule is a bit different. It's just more sort of small group community based, and it's meant to be not quite a transition year, but just a year apart from the main theology house, which you join after a year at Sarah House or so. But aside from that, the lifestyle at the seminary, maybe we'll talk about that in a future question, but that part's been pretty consistent over the years, I think.
Actually, why not just jump into it right now with that, with what you were saying about that whole, what you were saying about the whole life.
Yeah, so you're basically asking what's the day in the life of a St. Augustine seminarian, right?
Yeah, and
living
it's
at 2661 Kingston Road.
Yeah, exactly. But it's different. Like it's different from, at least from what I understand, it's different from each year, or is it not? I guess.
Yeah. So the biggest distinction, I think, is again between Sarah House and spiritual years, so the earlier years of formation, and then the later theology years. All the theology years are mostly consistent in the sense of a first-year theologian and a fourth-year theologian, for example, have a very similar day in the life of a seminarian. So basically, in case you're wondering, I can give a quick overview of what a day in the life of a theology seminarian looks like here at St. Augustine's.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, really prayer is the center point of our day, right? So we gather as a community. So all of us together in the main chapel twice every day, once in the morning and once in the evening. And basically in the morning we gather, we start at 6:30 a.m. So maybe that's early for some of you, maybe that's not, who knows, right? But we start at 6:30 a.m. with Eucharistic adoration, and then we pray, we actually chant it. We chant morning prayer together, and that's concluded with benediction. That's sort of our morning liturgy. And then the evening liturgy will be Mass. So we'll gather again together as a community to celebrate the Eucharist. And those are really, like I said, the two foundational points of the day. We start our day in prayer, and then we meet again around evening time for more prayer. Aside from that, meal times throughout. So we have a community meal every evening. Our dinner meal is mandatory in the sense that we all show up at the same time. We say grace together, and we share a meal as an entire seminary community. For breakfast and lunch, it's more kind of casual. You just come down at lunchtime, at breakfast time to get your food, and you end up sitting with some people as well, but it's not as formal as the dinner meal. And then really the rest of the day is filled either with our classes. So if we have class that day, we would attend class. And the rest of the time, it's free time, but it's not really free, just in the sense of that's the time when we spend doing our readings, doing our homework, and also personal prayer, right? So it's important that all of us, like each seminarian, in addition to praying as a community, obviously we each have our own personal prayer lives, and that can look like, sitting in the chapel by yourself, praying the rosary, going for a walk outside, being with God and nature, any and all of the above, right? But in a nutshell, that's kind of day in the life of a seminarian. And then, of course, we have more special events throughout the year, like the Ordinandi dinner. That would have been a big event in person, but we compromised by basically having a live stream party. We all gathered together and watched it at 7 o'clock on Tuesday. So, so yeah, that's basically a day in the life of a St. Augustine seminarian.
So then there is free time to maybe watch like the Leafs game after you've got everything done.
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
So we have a really nice facility here, but we have a TV room downstairs. We have a couple of seminarian lounges where guys can just chill out and hang out. Sports is also pretty big. So most nights of the week, there's usually something going on in the gym. Like last night, I wasn't a part of this one, but a bunch of guys started what's it called? 3 versus 3 basketball league. And they just drafted the teams last night, and that's kind of happening for the next couple of weeks. Our ping pong tournament is, I think, reaching the quarterfinals now. So that's kind of wrapping up as well. We do that every winter term around this time. And just outings as well. Like sadly, this didn't happen as much during the pandemic, but now that things are finally getting back to normal, it's quite normal for a couple guys to just, hop in the car after dinner and drive down to Dairy Queen, maybe in the summertime, just to grab an ice cream or something. So we do stuff like that as well. We don't just sit here all the time. Nose in the books all the time, 24/7. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, definitely not.
That'd be
for better or for worse.
Yep, I get it. So how about let me throw it back to you, Daniel. I'll go back here so we were talking a little bit about vocation. I think this is a good time to jump into it. Did you want to talk about, I guess, your call to the priesthood?
Sure. So as Michael briefly mentioned in the beginning, I moved to Canada back in 1999, August. And my mom, my maternal grandmother, she was the only Catholic in our family. And my mom suggested that once we moved to Canada, why don't we all get baptized, right? So as my grandmother's favor, but also my mom wanted to become a Catholic. Like she never told me that, but later she told me that if we ever get a religion, you'll be Catholic, right? Roman Catholic, right? So in 2000, Easter Vigil, our family got baptized at St. Anglican Korean Catholic Church. And I think that was the best moment of my life, and I'm still grateful for my parents to introduce me to the faith, right? So that was really even until now, that's the faith is the one that really helped me go through any struggle I had in another country. This is now my country too, but back then it was really I was the stranger in Canada, right? So that was the faith was the one that really hold me tight, and so after my family was baptized, like we were really involved in church activities, especially my brother and myself. We as usual, like all the boys do, but I joined the acolyte, so I was the altar server for about 4 years at the church. And one time, I think for the first time, back then it was Father Hansu and Father John Pak. They were seminarians back then, so they invited Korean acolyte from St. Kim. So that was my first time visit to the seminary, St. Augustine Seminary. Back then I didn't even know what the seminary was or seminarians was. Like priesthood I knew, but then I didn't know what the seminary, what's the word meant, right? So that was my first time learned about seminary and seminarians. So I got to meet up with not just the Korean seminarians, but then other seminarians there, and then I got to talk to them, and I got to learn about priesthood, seminarians, and seminary life there, or just briefly. And it's still like I remember I speaking to not just I think one of the parents from the college. He told me that, Daniel, did you hear that? Or maybe he heard from someone else too. He heard that seminary is the place where gets the attack, where the place where the devil attacks the most, right? So sometimes, like because seminary, right? Because seminarians, so people develop seminarians. They, tempt the seminarians to, not to become priests, right? So that either this is true or not, that really stuck in my head, and I started praying for the seminary and seminarians, and also for the priesthood, right? Then I started really praying, like, and pray for the seminarians, and then after maybe 2 weeks, I went to the seminary. Usually, every Korean parish there are two Korean nuns from Korea, Korean sisters. So usually one of them in charge of the acolyte. So she came up to me and she asked me, Daniel, have you ever thought of becoming a priest? Become a priest? And I told her, because I never thought of becoming a priest, and I thought that in order to become a priest, you need to be really, really, really sinless and pure. Right? It's not that like now it's different, but I just thought that because I was just convert, so I didn't have really strong theology background. So I didn't know, I didn't even know about the original sin and all that, right? So I thought that you have to be really sinless, never sinned before, and you have to be pure. So I told her, how can I be? I'm so unworthy to even think about becoming a priest. And I still remember the sister, the nun, told me that, Daniel, you don't choose God. God chooses you. So that really stuck in my head again. I still praying about it because I never thought of becoming a priest, and I didn't even dare to think about it. And after I heard from after I had a conversation with the sister nun, I started praying about it, and I was in grade 11, and I started praying about it. And one night I started writing a long letter to my mom. So I don't know what I wrote, but I remember writing at least two full-page long letters, until 2 a.m. And the next morning, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. because I was in high school, right? And then I just hand this letter to my mom, and she was in the kitchen preparing lunch. But I remember I just gave it to her. I just ran out. I don't know why, because maybe I was just not scary, but I was kind of embarrassed in a way. I told her, and then I wrote it, and then after I came back home from high school, I found her standing at the same spot I gave her the letter. She was standing in the kitchen. I'm sure she wasn't like standing there a whole day, but I could tell she's been crying all day. She's been crying all day, right? So, but even then, she didn't say much. Like she didn't even talk about it. But after a week, she came up to me and then, can I talk to you for a second? And she said, her response was no. So I wrote a letter saying that I want to enter the seminary, I want to become a priest, but then her response was no. And we talked about it, and then I know my mom. My mom is really wise and she's really firm with her decision. So I didn't even dare going against her decision. So I said, okay. And then after years, I decided to go to university. So I went to Waterloo for business, and I studied there. But so I never completed my study there, and I really struggled at university because I really felt like I was the only one not on the right track. So most of my friends were engineers and studying accounting there, but I feel like I don't belong here, right? Because I want to enter the seminary, but I'm here. So whenever I see my friends like going to class with really like smile on their face and they're so passionate about their studies, I wasn't really. It's not that like I wasn't doing well, but I wasn't really into it, right? So after second year of my university, my brother, I have an older brother and younger sister. My older brother had a business which was Canada post office with a convenience store. So that business was given by my dad, right? So my brother was suggesting that, because I spoke to my brother a lot about the struggle, and then he knew my struggle. So he told me that, why don't you just take a break from studies and then help me with the business? So I started helping my brother with the post office business. So and that ended for that went for like 2 years. So I was away from school for like another 2 or 3 years. And every post office they have district manager from the corporate Canada post office district manager. And then I got to know him about it, and then I later on we sold the business, and then I started working at post office in downtown. So I didn't go back to school, but then I just continued working at post office for like another 4 years. But it's also, well, at the same time, like I'm working, but at the same time, again, I don't feel like this is my path, or I'm not on the right track. So I was really thirst for the right track, right? So one time I still went to mass every day. Like I usually finish at 5 p.m. So after 5 p.m. I go to St. Michael's Cathedral for 5 p.m. devotion there and the 5:30 mass there. So that was the best 2 hours of the day. So that I really, and then I still felt called to the priesthood. So one day I decided to reach out to Father Chris Renew, the former vocation director. So I sent him an email and I told him, yeah, I want to, this is my story and I want to enter the seminary, like what will be my next step? And he said, okay, let's meet up, right? So I went to meeting, and he was really kind, and he suggested that I should join the associate program. Associate program is the program before you enter Center House, program before enter the pre-theology house. So you have to do associate program for at least 1 year before you actually apply for the seminary, right? So I did that for about a year, and after 1 year, Father Chris Lim gave me the application. So you don't really, not everyone can really apply. Usually the vocation director will give you the application, right? So kind of chosen one, in a sense, chosen one. So he will give you I think you fit for the seminary, right? So he gave me the application, but I was like, I will wait. Not because I didn't want to continue, but then I found out that you'd be better to have undergrad the degree before I enter the seminary. So I decided to transfer to any university in Toronto. So I transferred to University of Toronto downtown. So, and then I kind of want to change major, because either way, I'm going to be studying philosophy anyway. So I decided to major in philosophy and Christian and culture at U of T, and I was able to transfer to U of T. So pretty much while I was studying at university, I joined the associate program. So I did 1 more year because I didn't want to, I didn't feel ready to enter seminary before I finished my studies. But after 2 years of associate program, when I was still at university, I decided I accept the application and I applied to seminary. I got acceptance at seminary. Then I started my cell house, the philosophy house, and then even at cell house, I did 2 more years of university studies. So then when I was at cell house, I finished I got my undergraduate degree at U of T. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But like one of the thing that I mentioned, worth mention, is that I really like praying the rosary. That's one of the really, not just went to the seminary for the first time and then I felt called to priesthood, but also the rosary really helped me to discover my faith. Like I really praying the rosary and I love praying the rosary, and also reading about the saints. And that's why when it was a Waterloo, I felt like struggle not being on the right track. Only because I love the quote from Saint Catherine of Siena. She once said that be who God made you to be, and you will set the whole world on fire. That really struck my heart. Like I don't feel called to these studies or that, but then I felt called to priesthood. So that's the one really got me going. Like I felt called. I need to be a priest, right? So that was the one thing really got me going. And praying the rosary was one of the weapon that really got me through deepening my faith and relationship with God. And the one episode to add was that back in 2002, the luminous mystery was first introduced.
Yep.
Since I love praying the rosary, I wanted to be the first one to pray the rosary, that rosary mystery, right? So officially it was introduced on October 16th, 2002. So on October 15th, I stayed awake until 11:59 p.m. and then after 12 at 12 I'm gonna say a prayer. I'm gonna make a song. I'm gonna pray. I will be the first one to pray the mystery, throughout the whole world. But then after I was happy about it. Oh, I did it. But then after one day I realized that, you know what? Even South Korea is like 14 hours ahead of us, right, Canada? So I'm sure like I'm way behind, like way behind, right? So that was like another episode that, yeah, but that's about it. So yeah, I just want to add that, I start from like Sarah House, like a university, Sarah House, and I felt like there's God provides. There's all I would have done it without God's help, and also the supporters and the share life, all that, all the who working behind the scenes. I feel really grateful for my vocation, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it was really,
Thank you. That's great, Daniel. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to you, Deacon Adam. So your story is also, I think, in the Ordinandi video. Is that right? As well?
Yeah, I was going to say there's a 4.5-minute summary of my vocation story that was broadcast to the universe last Tuesday at 7 o'clock for the Ordinandi dinner. So feel free to go check that out if
where all
you
the
guys want
seminarians
the
were having,
version.
yeah, and all the seminarians are watching, having pizza then too.
Yeah, that was a little bit painful, to be honest. When my turn comes up, nobody likes to watch themselves on TV, I don't think. At least I don't. But anyways.
Do you want to give the Coles notes on your?
Yeah,
on your
I'll give the really quick version, I guess. I like to explain my vocation story in 3 steps. I mean, maybe step isn't the right word. 3 chapters, let's say, right? So the first chapter would be coming back to the faith. So I never really left the Catholic faith, but I was sort of one of those fallen away Catholics that never went to church growing up, never prayed, et cetera, me and my whole family as well. And chapter 1, which is kind of a really long story, but I touch on it briefly in the video. I basically came to a point near the end of high school when I decided to start going to Mass. And basically what led me to do that was just this, I think curiosity is the best word to describe it, but even from a really young age, and it took me a long time to clue into this, but there was always something deep in my heart that was drawing me towards God, towards the church, towards prayer, except I didn't have that language to describe it back then, right? So anyways, one thing led to another, and I basically came to a point when I said, like, I want to do something about this curiosity or this desire. So I decided to go to Mass one Sunday on my own. I went just without my family on my own, and basically made a promise that I'd try coming back the next Sunday, and so on and so on and so forth. And so basically around the time I started university was when I became a practicing Catholic. And I mentioned that as chapter 1 because, well, chapters 2 and 3 don't happen without this foundation, right? If I never came back, if I never started praying, I never would have been able to hear God's voice, to know that he loves me, to know that he has a plan for me, right? So really, this is the foundation of the house, if you will, right? Chapter 2 would be during my university days. So I kept on practicing my faith all throughout university, sort of in a backseat mode, but I'm grateful that I never really left the church or anything like that during the crazy university years. Chapter 2 is when I really got interested in chemistry, right? So you mentioned I studied chemistry. I was and still am a huge science nerd. I think science is fascinating. I thoroughly enjoyed my studies as a chemist, doing experiments in the labs, having dreams of becoming a chemistry professor one day. And I basically followed that career path right into grad school. So I did my undergrad at McMaster and then my master's degree in inorganic chemistry at the University of Toronto following it. All the while, like I said, having a dream to be a chemistry professor, right? At the same time, especially near the end of this chapter 2, is when I started getting more actively involved with my faith. So the first several years of university, I practiced my faith, but sort of quietly. I'd go to Mass on my own, sneak out the back afterwards. I'd say my prayers, but that was really about it. Whereas near the end of university, again, super long story, but starting to get involved in things like the Newman Center at U of T. I joined the Knights of Columbus around that time. I basically ended up being a totus tuus missionary, sort of really a life-changing moment for me, just in terms of owning my Catholic faith and feeling called to spread it with others and things like that. So all this is happening within chapter 2, right? So chemistry nerd versus starting to really take my faith a lot more seriously. And then the two really not collided, but met each other in chapter 3. In chapter 3 is when I had a realization that really shook me up a lot. Like it kind of felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. I realized that I enjoyed all this church stuff more than I did the chemistry lab, right? Which shocked me, because for years and years I was on this pathway to become a professor. I don't over exaggerate when I say I loved chemistry. It was fascinating to me. And yet here I was discovering something that I was more passionate about, that I felt more called to do. And it kind of confused me, because then I said, okay, wait a minute, this path isn't quite where God wants me to be, right? And at the same time, literally within months of this discovery, because God has a sense of humor, he sent me something else to shake me up. And that's when I first started hearing the call to the priesthood, right? So I never heard a voice, I never had a eureka moment, but it was just very, very gradually over several years, something stirred in my heart. And it was basically that invitation from God, Adam, have you thought about being a priest? And then later on, I want you to be a priest, right? At first, it scared me. I ignored it for many years, tried to get rid of it, but maybe some of you here know, if God's speaking to you and you ignore him, he just speaks louder next time usually. So I wasn't going to be able to run away from it. And eventually, again, super long story short, but I kind of left the world of academia and started taking discernment a lot more seriously, following a very similar path to what Daniel described, reaching out to Father Chris Lemieux, joining the associates program, come and see retreats at the seminary. And one thing led to another. I was accepted into St. Augustine's in 2015 after going from being afraid of my vocation to kind of being at peace with exploring it further. And then the last 7 years at the seminary, that's its own sort of talk, the story about that, but lots of ups, lots of downs. And most importantly, it led me to September 5th, 2021, when I gave my life to the church and promised celibacy, obedience, and prayer as a transitional deacon. And now I am just over 2 months away from the end, or the beginning, really. I guess it's more of a beginning, but my priestly ordination and the start of my active ministry in the Archdiocese. So there you go.
Yeah, I guess that would be, so in 2 months, that would be chapter 4 then.
I guess so, or maybe it's a new book. I don't know how to
Yeah.
label it. But
That's true.
Definitely a major transition for sure.
Yeah,
So,
volume 2. So we've been going, we're going to go to questions in the chat now. Some people have already been placing things in there. I also placed in the chat a link to your to the Ordinandi video as well. So you can always find that there as well, everybody. One of the questions, actually, with you talking about a deacon, I have a question here. Does every priest, when they're ordained as a deacon, have there been any that just remain as a deacon and don't take that final step?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't personally know of any. I also know it's extremely rare for that to happen. Normally we call it the transitional diaconate for a reason, right? Because we feel called to become priests, and that's the pathway we're on. But it can happen, and I know it has happened before. Again, no one that I know, and nothing that I can think of off the top of my head, but it is possible for someone to be ordained a deacon and then discern or change their minds or whatnot, and basically stay there. It is possible. I just think it's quite rare. That's kind of my own experience of it.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
This next question from the chat, and again, I invite anyone, if you have any questions for Deacon Adam or for Daniel, throw it in the chat and I will bring it up with them. I have a question for Daniel. Daniel, I've lost it. Here we go. Okay. How old were you when you converted?
Pretty much, okay. So just to make, I knew people, someone would ask. So now I'm 35. I just turned 35. So maybe 12, 13. Yeah. So people think I'm way younger than 35. So maybe I should have introduced. I should have said my age now, and so they can do some math. Because people think that I'm 24, 21, and then my vocation story doesn't make sense, right? So
yeah.
So, yeah.
So you're pretty young when you
I was quite
converted.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Deacon Adam. I had this question, Deacon Adam, and then this will also be going back to you, Daniel. So challenges is seminary life, or even with your call. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. where do I start, right?
Yeah,
I don't mean
exactly.
that in a cynical way. I just mean that I really believe that any vocation is going to have its challenges, whether it's marriage, whether it's priesthood. And I think all of us in this room have had our own challenges with our life journeys and vocations, right? So that's what I mean when I say, where do I start? Let me try and pick one thing to talk about. What could I say? I think, okay, maybe I'll say this, and this is again just picking out of the basket. There are many things I could talk about here, but one thing that I've struggled with in the past at the seminary is sort of this, right? So when I joined the seminary, I felt very called to, be active in the church, to do ministry. I really enjoyed my summer with Totus Tuus, getting involved in parish life, and I still very much enjoy that. I find it life-giving, and yet at the seminary, this may sound a bit surprising, but that's not really the focus of what we do here, right? The focus of what we do at the seminary is it's a place of discernment and preparation. So we're called to actually not fully, but partially step back from that form of active ministry, just to create the space where we can really go deeper in our prayer life, spend time discerning spiritual direction, silent retreats, things like that, but also just to give the energy to our studies and our preparation. So we don't really have time to do too much ministry because we need to do our courses, right? Which is super important for the future. And this has always been a struggle for me, especially in the first couple of years of seminary, because I reached a point when I kind of said, wait a minute, all the reasons I came here aren't here anymore. Like, what's up with this, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a call to go deeper. Okay, that's actually not the reason. I'm here because of Jesus, not because of the ministry I can do in a parish, even though, one leads to the other. So I think that's been a constant struggle for me, just, those days when I don't want to write this essay and this class is boring and I just want to go to the parish and do ministry, and yet God's calling me here so I can get ready for that day when it comes, right? So there's one struggle I've had. Hope that answers the question a little bit.
How about you, Daniel? We'll go over to you. Challenges?
Like Deacon,
difficulties?
Deacon Adam said, many challenges, many difficulties. Maybe I can just go back to first time I entered ShareLife. I'm just going back to your question. My struggle was that I'm very introverted, and I'll be staying in a house, with different personality and different nationality, different, that's really hard actually. Just living in the community, and I was compared to other brother seminarians, I was older than them, so maybe even 10 years younger than me, right? So it was kind of difficult for me to, not living with them, but it was really, because since I'm introvert, it was really hard for me to, I was really struggling with interpersonal skills, right? Interpersonal relationship. So that's one of the challenges that I go through every year, to be honest, every year. But also there's always, positive experience with the community and people. And also finding balances between academics and prayer, right? So you'll be studying, you'll be going to classes, but then at the same time, you need to keep your prayer life. Actually, you have to focus more on prayer life, but in reality, it's not easy because you have assignments to do, and you have exams, and you have classes, readings, a lot of readings. But at the same time, you also have to pray, and you have to have prayer center of your formation. And without prayer formation, without prayer in the formation, it's just nothing. It's really nothing, right?
Yep.
So that was like finding balances between academics and the prayer life. It was also hard for me. Still hard for me, but then still striving to make the balance. And yeah, so yeah, there are so many, but I think that I found really difficult to finding balance between academics and prayer life, and just being in the community with different personalities, different people. But at the end, how God always, finds good out of bad, right? So all these challenges, all struggles, at the end, it just transforms into positive experience, and all this fruitful, right? At the end, so I just always end with, I remember every year, first year of the seminary is always struggle, but at the end of the year, I will looking back at the seminary life, just it's always I should be grateful, more grateful, gratitude and love of God is there. It's always there. So So even there's another struggle, I'm not too afraid now because I know God will transform that struggle into positive experience for everyone, right? So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. We have about 5 minutes, or well, just over 5 minutes. This is a good question. I like this one. As parishioners, how can we support the two of you on your journey? We'll go, since we've got Daniel, we'll start with you, and then back to you, Deacon Adam. Daniel? Yeah, we're gonna start with you.
Okay. So sorry. I
No
wasn't paying
problem.
attention. Okay. Oh, that's a good question. I never actually thought about it, but like I said in the beginning, like in between my vocation story, like the more I'm staying at the parish, the more experience my parish life. I should always grateful. Like I'm not trying to be the like nice guy here, but then even working at the ShareLife at the office during summer, like I knew about what ShareLife is, but I didn't know there are so many people working behind the scenes at the ShareLife, and even the parish, the parishioners. There are so many like volunteers. Just they don't even get paid. Even paid staff there, they work so hard. There's so much going on at the parish. I just more and more realize that I shouldn't complain. Like I just shouldn't complain, and I should just grateful and and then ask. They're already supporting us so much. They like not just financially, but also through prayer, with prayer. That's more than enough. Like prayer is like I find that's the most valuable, most strong gift we can receive from the Christian. So I think
Yep,
I
sounds
think that's
good.
enough. Yeah, that's enough. Prayer is enough.
Yeah. Can't lose with prayer. How about you, Deacon Adam?
Yeah, I will echo that. It sounds so simple, but honestly, pray for us. I think that's the best way that you can help us. Pray for us. And also, if you feel so called, like, fast for us, make sacrifices for us, just as we do for you, just as we're all called to do for each other, especially in this Lenten time. But, Daniel was mentioning earlier how that someone told him that, the seminary is a place that, sometimes undergoes spiritual attack, right? Like I don't mean to be over dramatic with that language, but whenever anyone says yes to their vocation, the devil is not happy, right? And so whether it's the priesthood or whether it's couples getting engaged to be married, I often know from experience that those types of people go through moments of doubt, moments of desolation, right? And prayer is so helpful in those moments, right? When I went through those chapters of my own journey, just knowing that there were people praying for me, that I could reach out to others and ask for prayer was so reassuring. But even more than that, prayer works, right? I really believe we all need that reminder every day. I need it every day. Prayer works. So if you're feeling called to help us out here at the seminary, definitely pray for us. That's part one. Part two, just really quickly, don't be afraid to reach out to us as well. Like I know we kind of just mind our own business here out in the big house on 2661 Kingston Road. And as I said, it's for a good reason. We're not constantly in parishes and kind of out in the archdiocese because we're doing our preparation here. But I've always genuinely appreciated the times when I have gone home to my home parish or visited my internship parish or just done events like this just to see your support, to answer questions. It's a joy for me to do that. So basically, if you know a seminarian or even a priest here at the seminary, don't be shy. We actually really like it when people reach out to us. So pray first. Like if you have to only choose one, definitely pray, but also know that we're friendly, we're human, we like to talk. So feel welcome to reach out to us.
Great. Thank you, Deacon Adam. We only have a few minutes left. I think I'd like to throw it back to the two of you. Maybe you guys can have some final words. Daniel, do you want to just any thoughts before we close?
Sure. So, first of all, thanks for joining us for just to listen to our vocation story and our response to the questions. And I just want to take this opportunity to and again want to thank you for all the supports and prayers I received so far. That's just amazing, and I know without prayer I wouldn't be here. Without God providence I wouldn't be here. So please continue to pray for us. And I just want to add, during pandemic, we put the stickers and the tapes on the ground to, arrow and all this stuff. But then last week we started removing the stickers and the signs or tapes from the pew, right? And I realized that that kind of feels like I'm removing the band-aid, It's like now the church is healed. Because I feel like I'm taking off that sticker from the wounds of the church and taking off that. Now it's all here, and then I see Christians coming back to church. That's just, I'm so happy to see like so many Christians in the church now. So please come back, and especially I'll be waiting for you, the Christians at my parish, or I'm sure other seminarians who are also on internship. We have shared the same experience. We love to see people coming back to church. So please continue to pray for us, and please hope to see more of you in the church. Thanks for all your support and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And Deacon Adam, I guess you get the final word.
I guess I get the final
You can
word.
give me some more chocolates.
Oh, hold on a sec. Somebody is, there we go.
All right, I'll try again. Although, Michael, I think you're going to get the final word when you officially
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, that's right.
Close the meeting in a few minutes. But nevertheless, yeah, I'll just echo what Daniel said. Thank you to all of you for so many reasons, for showing up today, right? For being interested in our journey and for hearing what we have to say, for supporting the seminary through this way. And also too, I don't know if you're going to say this at the end, Michael, but thank you to everyone here for supporting ShareLife, right? Like we know here at the seminary that we are, I might steal your line here, but we are one of the biggest recipients of ShareLife support. So I believe over $1 million every year from ShareLife donations comes to St. Augustine Seminary to support me and Daniel and all my other brothers here. And just please know we are so grateful for that. It's such a blessing that we're able to have our formation here. So for those of you that have supported ShareLife, thank you. For those that are praying, thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully our paths may cross, excuse me, one day in person. And yeah, I'll just end by again humbly asking you to please pray for me as I prepare to be ordained a priest, which is totally life-changing, and also as I prepare to begin my ministry, perhaps at a parish near you somewhere. Who knows? I have no idea where they're sending me yet. I don't know if anybody does, but coming soon to a parish near you for better or for worse. So please pray for me, guys. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thank you, Deacon Adam. Thank you, Daniel, for being a part of this. It's now lunchtime. So I see in the chat, a lot of people have already been saying that they are praying for you. Just know that they are definitely praying for you. We're all praying for you. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I think this has been a great discussion. Get some insight on St. Augustine Seminary and our two seminarians. Daniel, Deacon Adam, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for being a part of today's ShareLife Speaker Series. Have a good day and have a great lunch, guys.